I'm honored to be able to speak with you all today. First of all, we're going to be talking about NWS Topeka has had a unique opportunity with the University of Kansas being so close to our office, and a lot of our employees, half of our staff actually lives in Lawrence, where the University of Kansas is located. And we've had the opportunity to teach the operational forecasting class for the past 5 years now. And I'll get into some details on how we've kind of changed how we went about teaching that class later. We'll get into some of the topics that we talk about and some of the changes that we had to implement this year because of the COVID-19 outbreak. But to begin with, where did the idea come from to have NWS meteorologists teach a meteorology class at a university? Well, this all started at the University of Oklahoma. Specifically, Ariel Cohen was one of the leading people on this, as they taught one of the operational forecasting classes at the University of Oklahoma. Originally, Bryan Baerg was the first meteorologist here back in 2016. He taught the class at KU for 2 years in 2016, 2017. And then he departed to Omaha as the SU there, and then Chris Sanders, who now is a lead at Grand Junction, taught the class in 2017. But the problem that we kept running into was it was one person teaching an entire class. Well, when they departed, then now what? Now we have to have one person step up and take the class over for the next year. So in 2019, 2019, we decided to restructure how we went about doing the class, where we utilized multiple staff here at Topeka. Last year we used 6 meteorologists, and we'll get into how we have changed a little bit this year. But like I said, this was motivated by the University of Oklahoma severe weather forecasting class that SBC meteorologists down there taught. They started that in 2014. So some of the goals, I know me personally going through the University of Kansas as a student about 5 years ago, I know that there really wasn't a ton of real world experience as far as operational meteorology goes. So to be able to have an operational forecaster come into the classroom and teach us operational meteorology, that experience is second to none. So we just wanted the students to have that realistic and real world insight into things that we do on a day-to-day basis at the Weather Service in an operational setting. We wanted to make sure that any homework or class activities that we had applied to what we do at the Weather Service and wasn't just applying methods that they had learned in dynamic or synoptic classes, so on and so forth. But basically the overall is we just wanted to develop those partnerships between the Weather Service and academia, especially here at the University of Kansas and the Weather Service here in Topeka. And we have had some success in streamlining some R2O and O2R initiatives with research projects that we've been able to do with some of the students over at KU. So some of the course structure, how we set that up, Kevin Scott, who's going to be giving the next talk, that's his picture there. So we originally started this as a half semester course, and that's how Bryan Baerg started it in 2016. And the main reason was because if we started, and this is in the spring semester, so we're starting in mid to late January, and we went a half semester that took it through roughly spring break, so mid to late March. And that usually was okay for getting the class over with prior to severe weather season starting. But this has been a very interactive student to student, student to instructor lecture series. Basically, we wanted to avoid just having slides, clicking through slides. We wanted the discussions to happen between both the students and the instructors of the students. But basically, we had some lecture material. Every instructor had in-class assignments and group assignments for that matter. We wanted to make sure there was a lot of group and class discussions going on. And we'll get into more of what each instructor taught. Basically, we wanted to be their focal point and what their strength was in. We did some weather map discussions, forecasting and warning drills. And of course, we had to throw some derivations in there as well. So some of the course topics that our instructors have used over the past 2 years. So has Ariel Cohen, who has now departed to Miami, will shortly be heading to Pueblo. He kind of referred to this as good cop, bad cop. So he went first last year, and we made them do derivations, derivation, just so they didn't know exactly what was going to come of the semester. but basically wanted to lay the foundations of some of those dynamic and fluid equations that we're going to be utilizing later on in the semester with other topics that the other instructors are going to be using. So that was the first set of class that we were going to utilize for this course. Secondly, Bill Gargan, who's a lead forecaster here, his guru is definitely severe weather forecasting. Matter of fact, he's on his way to southern Oklahoma, North Texas right now to do some chasing. I've already been talking with him this morning about where he's going to go. But anyways, his focus for the class was to do manual analysis of surface charts in shear profiles, and basically to try to interpret what kind of convective mode or where any sort of convection maybe is going to develop later on in the day. I think Kevin here to my right, his focus is definitely radar warnings and storm surveys. So that was his focus for his 2 class periods that he taught. He basically showed the pivotal role that radar and satellite play in warning operations. He did a thorough overview of all of the different radar products, some of the convective warning strategies that we utilized here, and then processes for conducting those post-storm events. But he also had kind of a real-time radar warning scenario that he had the students go through, and then did some post-storm survey examples that the students were able to conduct themselves, which was pretty cool. And then there's me. I kind of built upon what Bill had started getting into with Hodograph analysis in convective mode. Basically, I wanted the students to get an understanding for why does a right moving supercell develop? Why does a left moving supercell develop? Why do supercells not develop at all? And how looking at the Hodograph structures plays into how you can anticipate what convective mode is going to be now, what is convective mode going to be in 30 minutes, 1 hour, basically trying to dive into that mesoanalysis portion, but specifically in the Hodograph analysis portion. So the example that I have there on the right portion of the screen was an assignment that I gave them, which it's a veer back veer Hodograph, and I wanted them to determine the pressure perturbation structures throughout the layer of that Hodograph itself, and determine what portions of the updraft is going to be dominated by potentially a right moving supercell, left moving supercell, and what kind of convective mode could they anticipate over the next 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours. And the students got a lot of value, or they found a lot of value in doing that because they really hadn't thought that deep about Hodograph structure and how that plays into convective mode. So we got some good feedback on that. Jennifer, who is also a lead forecaster here, she dove into the aviation culture portion of the Weather Service itself. So she's our aviation focal point here at the Weather Service. So she basically taught the students aviation forecasting, how we build TAFs. I know she did an activity where they had to build a TAF based on some radar data, satellite data that she had compiled, and she had them build a TAF. I think it was for the next 12 hours or so, based on the different categories for the airport at MCI, the Kansas City airport there. And then also she wanted to highlight the big thing in the Weather Service's culture, and how culture plays a huge impact in positive operational interactions. So that was Jennifer's 2 main things that she focused on there. Audra, who is by far our big messaging guru here at the office, DSS, she dove into the communication strategies across the Weather Service, and she basically did multiple different weather scenarios, and she actually got into contact with the local KU media group that's on campus, and she was actually able to get them to allow her to take the students into their green room, and they were actually able to do mock briefings in the green room, as well as do an EOC interview, which she kind of played the interviewer, excuse me, where she was asking them questions and then recorded them, and they were able to actually take those videos with them as they graduated last spring. But like I said, those interviews were professionally recorded at the University of Kansas TV station there that's on campus. So some of the course outcomes that we had, having the meteorologists there on campus with the students, we were able to bridge that gap between the classroom and workplace. I know I struggled when I came out of school, applying the methods that I learned in school into operations, because it's just a totally different atmosphere, and just trying to bridge that gap, allowing students to come out of school with a lot more operational knowledge than they do prior to us beginning that class. And like I said, we've been able to facilitate some of those R2O, O2R opportunities, which has been great. We actually had one of our students help us publish a Central Region Tech attachment. This would have been last fall or 2 falls ago, I believe. But it also encourages opportunities for student advancement, introduces students to the roles of the weather enterprise. They're basically able to gain practical experiences from actual operational meteorologists here at the Weather Service. And we've actually cultivated those professional relationships with a lot of those students, especially when we started last year and we had this larger group of meteorologists teach the class. So some of the feedback that we got from the 2019 school year, the students thought that the course was really jam-packed. It was into an 8-week course where we had class twice a week for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And like I showed you the different classes that we taught, it was a wide varying topics. So they would have preferred that we had a full semester class once a week versus a half semester twice a week. So that's what we changed about the 2020 year, is we've gone to once a week for the entire semester, which the COVID-19 has presented more challenges because of that, and I'll get into that in a moment, how we've gotten around those hurdles. We also established more prerequisites. Dynamic was not a prereq prior to this, and some of the sophomores in the class thought it was a little bit overbearing. They hadn't quite gotten into those fundamentals yet, so it was a little bit difficult for them. So we made it where students were at least juniors, if not seniors, so they could get a better grasp of the course material that we were teaching. They also thought every lecture had a homework assignment, and they thought that was a little bit overbearing as well. So we basically limited that to usually 1 homework assignment per instructor. So yeah, then we also streamlined assignments, challenging given the irregular schedule of individual co-instructors. Given our rotating shift work, it could be difficult if we weren't teaching back-to-back class periods. So moving forward, we did go ahead and extend the course to a full semester rather than just that half semester, and we limited it to just juniors and seniors, so they had a little bit more background knowledge of some of the materials we're going to be teaching. Ariel, as he moved on to Miami, he began the same type of class at Florida International University this year. And back on the KU portion of the class, the COVID-19 made challenges because we had to shift all of our in-class material to online. So basically half of our instructors have had to teach online, but it's been a good outcome. Students have still found all of the material to be very valuable. I actually taught yesterday my first class for the semester, and I'll be teaching my last one next Tuesday. But otherwise, it made it challenging at first, but we've been able to overcome the challenges that COVID presented us. And so there's all the instructors from last year, except for Kevin. Kevin, I think, was on midnights at the time we took this picture. But in the place of Ariel, we've had Jenny, our new Sue here, Jenny Pittman. She has taken the place of Ariel in the classes that he taught. As well, we've brought on our Opal, Sean, and he's also taught some observation classes as well. So that's just a brief overview of the opportunity that we've had here at NWS Topeka to teach at KU, and I'll take any questions if there are any.